Okay, so
All right.
we
Okay.
are recording. So here we go. So we're gonna get started. I'll put the intro on it. Like I told them, this is not live, like live in terms of we're not live streaming it. We will do something like that. This one is not like that. So this is going to be a discussion based on today, for this month. Our discussion today is based on this month, which is domestic violence awareness. And so what we are doing here at Shooting the Shit, which is based on raw conversation, we're going to, we say what we feel, say how we feel, we give information, we try to give solutions to situations and things of that nature. So today I have my bros on from Sigma Omega Phi Fraternity Incorporated. They're going to be on here, and we are going to talk about domestic violence. And we're going to take it from several views. We're going to take it from a viewpoint of a stud being in that position of being the abuser, as well as a stud being one that has been abused. And then because we have our bruh Elite on here, who is a professional bodybuilder and professional trainer, as well as a law enforcer. So she is going to take and give us some information on how they view domestic violence in same-sex relationships. It is very helpful to us. And then we're going to also try to make sure that we talk to people about Partnership Against Domestic Violence, which is an organization that is nationwide. They do have a crisis line, and I'll make sure that crisis line gets put up. People need the help and want to try to get out, they are able to help you. So let's get started. Basically, we were discussing, or we were having a brief conversation about the hottest thing that's happening on TikTok right now. It's called Daddy's Girls Cult. And I don't know if you've watched it, Elite.
The video. No, I haven't. I haven't, bro. Expand on it so that I'm up to par.
So what it is a stud has a cult of BBW, big black women that she has put into a cult environment. And technically, it is, I feel, and you all let me know how y'all feel. I take it even further than just not just domestic violence as much as it is sexual assault, if you ask me. Because she gets these women to, one, they are giving her money. She is playing on their self-esteem because they are big, big women. She degrades them. She takes away their self-esteem, as well as when they don't do what she wants them, like don't call her at a particular time, she will dictate that they cut themselves. She's had them rip their hair out, out of their head where they have patches of no hair. I literally watched another TikTok, which was live. It was someone else viewing, showing it. It had been from a live feed that her and this other woman did, where someone commented on this young lady saying she was beautiful. And the stud, Angela, she calls herself Angela the Goddess, she went basically ballistic. It was like, don't you tell her she's beautiful. That's my woman and all of this. So you have this, I'm gonna say predator, that is playing on these people and beating them even further down. But bruh, add to it. Tell Bray Lee what you all got from the video so she can get a even clearer and more verse kind of picture.
What I got out of it was basically like this woman is just mind controlling these women and making them have low self-esteem. Because even if they were to try to get out of this cult, they're gonna be their minds are gonna be gone. Like they're gonna feel like if they do seek love, it has to be that kind of love. And their minds are just damaged. I feel like it's just all over, like bottom line is mind control.
What you think, Classic?
Just preying on people in vulnerable situations. Like part of the large part of this, like with the individual is you actually preying on securities.
It's hard to hear you. It's hard to hear you. Breaking up a little bit. Let's see if we can get it. Hold on for me for 1 second. Okay. Okay, right now.
But I look at it two-sided. It's one side of it that you got who's preying on the insecurities of these, but it also speaks a lot to too, because it's like we always look at the predator situation, but it's like what state, like what do you go through to actually like susceptible to this type of like I think it causes us to reflect like what both sides need type of help. That's just what I saw from most patients. They
Like she's doing, she was an abused person, so she abused others. Is that
person needs to seek help, and then on the other side of that, the women who actually like agree to join into this occult thing and to actually participate in these activities, the issues be dealt with, because it's like it's one thing that's kind of me playing devil's advocate, because there's one side that would say look at this predator, but at the other side, I want to know what would cause a person to actually willingly put themselves in that type of situation.
What you got, bro?
As far as the abuse goes, that's a cycle. And most times people that succumb to abuse is because that's all they know as a sign of love. They don't know anything any different. Whether consciously and observing the world and other people, they know something's wrong. Subconsciously, without counseling or some type of help, they gravitate to that. You know, for example, they may get into a healthy type of situation and don't know how to handle that healthy situation because subconsciously it's not right. It's something wrong. It's too good, you know, and they end up making it a violence type situation because they don't know any different without some type of counseling.
Do you think that, or do y'all think that it's always, that it's one-sided, like it's a stud, like when you hear domestic violence, it's always the stud that your hand, and we're going to use the most common that everybody thinks is, of course, domestic violence is what we're going to talk about right now, is that I put my hands on that woman. So do you think that it's always just like on the studs part? Do you feel like it is?
Well, let me come from a couple of standpoints. Let me come from the aspect of law enforcement.
Okay.
If we go to, and I know we're discussing LGBTQ at this moment, but let me hop over to heterosexual for a moment and kind of use that same analogy that you're speaking of. Most times people feel like it's the male that when we get to that scene is the one that's causing the violence all of the time. That's automatically, unfortunately, what law enforcement feels. And oftentimes it's not. Oftentimes it's the woman, but the man is not going to report it because of, you know, either embarrassment or whatever the case may be. So I think it's pretty much the same thing in essence in LGBTQ relationships as well, because we're people. You know what I mean? And violence is violence, and it doesn't vary just because of your sexual orientation. You know, so I don't feel like it's always the stud, and that one I can tell you up close and personal. And of course, when we talk about the hands-on thing, no, it was not. It's not it wasn't hands-on where I'm speaking from. Mental is always, to me, as far as law enforcement goes, and as far as counseling goes, and being a liaison with domestic violence, is horrible because you don't heal from the mental. You know, the physical you do, but the mental you don't. Now, however, let me caveat to that. Now, your physical in my career ends up increasing and getting more and more egregious as time goes on, to where I've witnessed domestic violence that I answered for years, and the woman ended up being killed by the person that was violent because it continued to grow. You know, and there's a cycle that's applicable to aggressors, to abusers. You know, and part of that cycle is where they say, you made me do this. I won't do it again. I wouldn't do it if you didn't. And that goes back to the reflection of, if you don't get some type of counseling, because no one makes you do anything. That's a conscious decision or choice, you know. And if an abuser continues to tell you that, Without counseling, it will never get any better. And they also will isolate you. When you're talking about the ladies, they're going to isolate you. And if they know that you have a self-esteem issue, they'll take you away from family. They'll take you away from friends, belittle you where you're too afraid to reach out to friends and family. And that way that abuser is able to control every aspect of your life, takes away the things that you enjoy doing and going and doing. That's stupid. We're not doing that, and so forth.
What do you guys think about that? Give your thoughts.
I totally agree. Like, I feel like the law enforcement, they target who they expect. I feel that it's that way in same-sex relationships as well. I feel like they target studs first because we are the dominant ones in the relationship. A lot of times studs don't call the laws because we feel like we have to be, I guess, like that one that is all tough or whatever. So I feel like when law enforcement does, they do get there, of course, they're looking at the studs as, okay, this is the person that is being aggressive and being violent. And I feel like films are more the ones that call the laws and try to play victim and stuff like that. Because I've been in a abusive relationship before, and that goes for physical and abusive. I mean, physically and mentally. And if I didn't do paper trail, then I would have been the one in trouble because she always played victim. So to save my butt, I had to do paper trail, and that goes for like calling the laws, having witnesses, saving text messages, taking pictures of bruises, all that. So I feel like, yes, law enforcement do target the dominant ones in the relationship.
Quick question.
Let me say something, brother. Caveat to Genuine there. You are very, very correct in being in law enforcement for many years. That I have
the late 1900s.
I'm a little, different just because of looking at things a little bit differently. But that is very, very true. And then when you have someone like myself, they get there and here it is, this bodybuilder or in a tank top or what have you, automatically assume, so it makes it where and I didn't have to deal with law enforcement in my life at all until a certain relationship. And, and I wasn't the one that did the calling. And it was just a blessing for me that the officers that got there knew me, and knew and were familiar with the situation. You know what I mean? But those officers that were, say, training didn't. The first thing they saw was this black bodybuilder, standing in front of the home. Who owned the home? Who owned everything there? But those questions were never asked. It was automatically assumed. And then there were no bruises, no nothing or anything, because I don't raise my voice, and I'm not, saying I'm perfect, but I don't raise my voice. I don't put hands on anyone. One, because I know what it would do to my career, and that was used against me. Right. I'm going to act this way, behave this way, because I know you can't afford for these things to occur in your life because of your career.
Right. And that's why I feel like she tried to hold that against me, because I couldn't protect myself because of my career. So
let me ask, this is something that a lot of people, we all have done it, and that is ignore the red flag.
Man.
So all of us, and I mean, I can say, no matter what, whether bad or good relationship, I've ignored the flags as well. But, and it wasn't that it was an abusive kind of ignore.
Excuse me, I'm gonna step away 1 second, bro. Right. Keep talking, I can hear you.
So when you look back on the relationship that you were speaking of, did you ignore the red flags? Did you feel like, okay, I'm different, I can help her, I love her, we can move past that? What or did you just, and when you did the paper trail, what made you wake up to say, oh, I need to do a paper trail?
Okay. Yes, there. I did ignore the red flags. I did. You know, the heart wants what it wants. You know, you think, you know, this is the woman, you know what I'm saying? Like, she'll change eventually. She just went through a whole bunch of stuff, you know, in her past. Let me show her something different. Yeah, so the red flags were there. I just overlooked them. And it just got worse and worse and worse over time. And it was to the point where I was stuck because she wouldn't leave. And so I was catching myself just, you know, leaving my house when it was my house. And that's when I was just like, you know what? I was sitting in my car and I'm like, you know, I need to do paper trail, especially when it became very violent, where it was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be here tomorrow type, you know, type scenario. And so I had to protect myself. And so when I went into my therapy, because being a business owner, you need therapy. Okay. So I went to therapy and I was venting to my counselor, and I started talking to her about it. And like, she was like, well, you're doing the right thing. You're telling me, and you're doing, you know, you need paper trail. So at this point, I started telling, she was like, save all your text messages, say, you know, make sure you call the laws when you feel in danger. And so I would do all these things because I knew that I was the dominant one in that relationship. And any mark against me can take my career away. And I didn't want that. So I needed to do what I needed to do in order to keep my career and to keep the life that I have. So yeah, I did that. And that was the main reason why I decided to do paper trails, because I didn't know that I was doing paper trail. But when my counselor told me, hey, you know, you need paper trail, you're on the right track, you know, that's when it was my main focus. To every little thing that she was doing, I was like writing it down. I was texting, I was sending my text messages to someone else, you know, screenshotting stuff, you know, a lot of stuff, because when it all boils down, if I had to protect myself, I was going to do that. So yeah.
Now, Classic is our baby in the group. And so Classic, you're on a college campus. Okay. Tell us, I mean, I don't think, you know, share with us what you've seen or heard, or stories that you've heard about. Is it more likely that there are studs that are being abusive, or being abused due to the stress of being on a college campus and the stress of studying and having to make it? You know, some of those things might play into it. Have you seen any of those things come to the surface?
On my campus, I can't say that we had that problem with studs. But even really, you didn't even see that many studs. I was like one of the most visible ones, other than our athletes. But you kind of didn't really hear about domestic violence. Most of our domestic violence cases were men and women, and in those cases, on Dillard's campus, you have, on my university's campus, you have a ratio of higher. It's like for every one male, it's four female. So yeah, so you had a lot of ego issues going on our campus. So you heard a lot about sexual assault. We had a lot of sexual assault cases. You dealt with a lot of even that, like, just guys just putting their hands on girls in certain situations on campus, and hearing a lot of that. And so it's like, I do feel that after a while, after hearing so much, like, yes, that there is the narrative and is that energy around the campus. But it's just, that's just kind of the I guess the kind of situation that were built. But also, I feel like it did put a negative outlook on our male population, or just on masculinity in general. What that was supposed to, there was like the kind of like this energy around like what when it comes to studs, it's like what energy, what masculine energy are you imitating? And so, right. And so it's like, when you think about, I could say, for on a campus like that, when you have that type of thing going on, it's like, oh no, y'all have this ego issue with the power. You want to be able to say that you run with this many girls, or you are just like, like so bravado, so masculine, so macho. But as far as the studs that I actually knew of on campus, really never heard about that domestic violence issue. I will say that in a lot of situations that I think about same sex, I guess, domestic violence, you do get when you see films in that spotlight, you have, like, as far as playing victim, a lot of it comes from the stereotype of, like, going back to that, what do you expect masculines to do? Or when you see a stud, what energy is she imitating? And because you know that how it looked at in society, mainstream society, how they look at, oh, you're trying to imitate a man, or oh, you wanna be this, that, third. It's like you know, when they come to the scene, like how my brother was saying, you're expecting it to be causing a problem, because it's like an insecurity that I'm trying to be that I'm not. And so I feel like that does play a large role in how we look at it, just within ourselves too, within the community. How are we dealing with studs in films, as far as domestic violence goes? Like, are we looking at, are we taking care of our studs? Are we trying to see about our studs in situations? Or do we just think it's one-sided all the time?
It's not one-sided. As you know, Elite will also express when she's been called to people's homes. Even when it's heterosexual, it's not just the men being the abusers. It can be the opposite way. I'm gonna ask, and this is to Elite, is how do you, as a law enforcement, we're gonna take it the next step. It's not physical, so it's emotional and mental. So how is law enforcement able to help those that are in that kind of situation? Do you get a call for that?
We do get women and men as well that call in reference to that, and that's where your training and your years of experience comes in, because believe it or not, when you enter that scene, you see the signs of the mental abuse and what's going on just in the situation itself, and by observing that whoever the aggressor and the abuser is, that's where you listen to what's being said. That's where you pay attention to even how the home is set up. You know what I mean? How the children react, if there are children. You know what I mean? Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you know that tension, and only, the thing that we have is the victim crime assistance program, where we have a series of numbers and things that we pass out, and if you can find a way to give your information to the victim, you do, because oftentimes you can't pull them to another room. You can't pull them away and speak to them, and the reason you can is because they're afraid to do that, because they know when you leave, that abuse is going to be, what did you tell them? So you have to strategically find a way to be able to get them some help. If it's nothing but, here's my card, give your card to both, or whatever it is that you need to do to let that victim know that you can reach out to the Victim Crime Assistance Program in Texas. But yes, you do. You pay attention to all of those surroundings, and you do know children are probably your telltale sign, of what's going on in a household. You can tell when a child is a happy child, that there's a lot of love in that house. And you can tell a child that's in disarray and how they react even to you. If they're the kind that, little kids are going to hide behind their mom's leg anyway, most times. But you can tell by the way they react to you, of what's going on, or which parent they go to, and that kind of thing. Or you can see a kid's reaction that if you ask questions and they don't want to answer. So you just kind of observe, how things are in the household. You know what I mean? The questions that you ask the victim as well. And when you talk about those red flags, I'll caveat a little bit on that. Yes, it's a horrible feeling when you are getting ready to pull up to your residence and you decide to pass by and go and get a hotel in a place that you're paying all the bills, a place that you own before that person. See, and I wasn't ever involved in a violent relationship or domestic or abusive relationship. And we a lot of times make choices for the wrong reason, mine being a child, you know what I mean? And other situations, and oftentimes it does start out, well, this person has gone through so much abuse. Let me show them, as was said, what it's like to actually be loved and cared about. But again, it goes back to that cycle of abuse. No matter what you do, the other people may see that you're doing that, but they don't see that. That just does not resonate with them. You don't hit me, or you don't raise your voice, or you don't love me. So I'm going to start this confrontation because it's too good. I'm bored. It's not enough going on. It's not enough dissension, in this home. That's because this is what I grew up with. And 0 to 5 are your most cognitive years. And regardless of what you are taught, what you see, and what you embrace in those years is what until it's able to be changed.
So and I know that you deal with children on a regular. So do you see, I laugh because I remember there's a TikTok video where, there's this guy and he says his students come up to him and tell him stuff, and they tell him, my mama whipped up on my daddy last night. Do you get those kind of conversations with your kids when when you're teaching?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen it all. I've heard it all. A child will innocently tell you all of mama and daddy's business. They will react what mama and daddy does. So like there's kids out, they may go out to the playground and pick up a wood chip and just put it to their mouth, or, we had kids like pull down somebody's pants and get on their knees type thing. So it's rough. You see a lot of stuff. They basically mimic what they see and what they're around.
Do we want to say that, like, I watched this, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. It was a play called Walk Like a Man. And it's an awesome play. And there's a section in there where this young lady tells her mother, she's a little girl in a nice dress, and she tells her mom, I don't want to stay with the neighbor. He's kind of creepy. And the mom's like, but I got to go to work, baby. And he's so nice. He's willing to keep you. He won't charge me. Please, just do this. Well, he takes advantage of the little girl. As she, in her mental, it is, I will never allow anyone to do me like that again, to take my power. So what I saw in that, as in just taking that piece of it, is that some of us have seen our mothers go through bad relationships or having men in and out, or maybe it was just their dad not being that kind of upstanding kind of guy, or their mom and dad having a lot of arguments, and they saw power in one individual and not the other. And so they take that when they get old enough to date a woman, and they get with this woman, they begin the isolation process where when we're, just before you became my girlfriend, I liked all your friends. I didn't have a problem with you going out with your girlfriend. Now that we're together, you got to be right here wherever I am. What suggestions, and this goes to everybody, what suggestions or what have you seen is a way for them to possibly recognize that flag? And even if I want to be with you, I will never say to somebody, lead a person, unless it is in as we all know, a very toxic environment. I never tell somebody, hey, leave this person. But is there a way for, if I catch that flag right away, can I have that moment of saying, I can work with this person to lower that insecurity? We just got to go, no, we can't play with you because you're going down the wrong route. And should we take the flag and walk away? What do you all think about that?
I think that if it's multiple red flags, that's when you should run. Versus if it's just one, I mean, you can be like, all right, I can work with her, you know what I'm saying? But like if it's 2, 3, you be like, all right, like it's time to go. Because I mean, after a while, like those 2 or 3 red flags is gonna turn to something that's not good.
And it gets harder and harder to get out of that situation the longer you remain in. That's one of the reasons I've been a person that after being a certain age, that I won't live with someone unless being married, because it gets very difficult to move that person or get away from that person, and you've allowed those red flags, and I agree too with maybe one red flag, because we have red flags of our own.
Right.
We have our own issues, and would hope that partner, can deal with whatever red flag we have. I think those red flags need to be talked about if we're going to tolerate them.
Right.
And discussed and communicated about, what type of red flag is this? Is this a red flag that's my hang up? Or is it actually a red flag that I need to not indulge in, or a red flag that I need to communicate because I'm willing to work with it and accept it? But we always have to look inside too first to see, is this about me? Is this really a red flag? Or is it something that I just don't like because I just don't like it?
Right.
Now, do you think that, and I was going to go somewhere with it because you mentioned it, is that communication. I have noticed, and you guys correct me if it's my observation, but have you noticed that it's difficult to have to communicate and the person comprehend if they are the abuser?
Abusers don't communicate.
So how do you correct? So that means that
you
have a problem right there, right?
You can't correct an abuser. That's definitely for a professional person to do. You as the person in that relationship, that's where the problem is too, because we feel like we can fix these red flags or correct these red flags, and we're not qualified to do so. And then the victim in an abusive relationship really doesn't even know that they're a victim. I've had many people say, well, why didn't they just leave? Why don't? And I said, you have to understand, as many domestic violence cases that I've answered, you go from the case of this woman has no experience or background or education in anything to be able to sustain herself. And she has all of these children, and that's her only way of taking care of her kids, to those that don't even recognize they're in an abusive relationship, because to them it's normal.
Talk about that. Let's talk about that. Not knowing that you're in an abusive relationship. What it is, okay, so now we're gonna, and I'm looking at this from a stud perspective, as I am the person that's going to be the abuser of someone, okay? So little bitty things, I don't even know I'm in an abusive relationship. So when I call my girlfriend, I'd be like, come here, bitch, this is my bitch. Are we beginning in the steps of that, or is that okay?
No, that's abuse already.
Right.
That's abuse already. Because one, that's a possession, that's a possessive type thing of telling you, you're going to do what I say, when I say, how I say, and this is the way I'm going to address you. I'm already not recognizing you as a human being by name. I've already decided you're a thing, you're a possession, and if you don't do what I say, then these are the consequences. And to me, everybody is different, but to embrace those names and think it's a badge of honor is a problem. It really is. It's a problem, because at the end of the day,
let's look at this. But wait a minute, she just said on her TikTok video she was the baddest bitch.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was about to say. Like I mean, I hear what you're saying. However, I feel like some women are welcoming to that. So like, because like I've seen women say, I'm her bitch, or like, that's my, I don't know. I just feel like sometimes
that's not
they want that. They like when they're called.
Exactly. That's not recognizing that you're in an abusive relationship, because again, that's what I was talking about, is that's what they know as loving and caring. It's being spoken to in that manner because that's what they grew up with. That's what was shown to them as loving and endearing, whereas if you guys hear me speak about my parents quite a bit, that's something that my father would never, ever say.
He'd have lost all his teeth.
Okay, what teeth?
He'd have lost all his teeth. He said it to your mama.
Versus people that I grew up with were just the opposite, where they would, you would hear how their parents addressed each other. You know what I mean? So in their world, that is love, and that is okay, because they don't know any different. They don't know to be treated with respect, and to be upheld, and treated like a human being. You know what I mean? That this is that name calling, and
but
I'm
our
this and I'm
generation
that.
perpetuates it through our music.
Absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
Little Kim, she was the bad, she the baddest bitch. Trina, the baddest bitch.
Well, if you look at
that,
if you sorry to interrupt, but if you look at the music today, when you talk about rap music and things like that, being a percussionist, I play everything. But when you look at the genre of rap music, it perpetuates abuse. It perpetuates disrespect of a woman. It perpetuates, children out of wedlock and numerous. It perpetuates all of those things. So when it does that and it reaches the masses, these are the things that they embrace as positive, because the rappers are doing it. They've got money, they've got this, they've got that. A woman or a dominant female or male that, walks around with a string of women behind them and bragging about it is to me human trafficking. That's prostitution. But they brag about, I got 4 or 5 or 6 of them. So those women don't know that this is abuse, because to them it's like, I'd rather have him or her part of the time than not at all. So it's okay that there are 3 or 4 others, because you don't know any different. Whereas in your mental, we arrest people for things like that. That's a problem.
So Classic, you're in that group that's got that, they're listening to that music. What are you seeing in terms of, are the young ladies that you are encountering, that you're friends with, that you see on campus, off campus, in your age group, are they continuing to allow that perpetuation of that derogatory, like, you my hoe, you my bitch, this my, are they still keeping that, or is that starting to die? Do you see a difference?
Let me say something, Classic, before you go on. When you talked about the abuse on campuses coming from law enforcement standpoint, that is common on most campuses, not just at Dillard. Yes, the abuse like that with the males, and then that ratio is common in most universities, especially Black universities, and the domestic violence is common. Very, very common on university campuses, especially when you talk about frat parties and fraternities and sororities, and so much of that goes on.
Back to what I call relationship maturity. Mm-hmm. It's because you are 20 years old or over 18, or you can drink 21 or 20 or 24, or you're in grad school or whatever, does not mean that your maturity, your relationship maturity level is where your age is. Okay. Correct. So we are finding that some of these gentlemen and some of these women, first of all, do not understand they're stepping into a very big responsibility when you are having sex. Correct. And that goes for our community as well. And
there's that pressure too, that with universities being in my county, there's that pressure that a lot of times that women feel that I have to do this on this campus with this athlete or with this fraternity boy, or so whatever. I have this pressure that I have to do this, and that's a form of mental abuse as well.
So what you got for us, Classic? Talk to us. You are our inside scoop.
No, it depends on. So it depends on what side of the spectrum that you're on, the type of that you're dealing with, and how they see themselves. I'll say, when I speak for a Dillard woman, is just different all the way together. But that's neither here nor there. But when you go to the spectrum of what you're exposed to, like I could say for some of my, I guess, colleagues that would be, they had the 2-parent household. They were like, they went to good schools. They had like a good upbringing. It's certain things that they wouldn't tolerate. Is a certain way that they carried themselves to it, that I'm not gonna let you treat me some type of way. Whereas you have some people who come from backgrounds that like might be like low income, might still be in a 2-parent household, but they just come from that environment where that type of behavior is normalized, or that's just the culture. That's just what we do. Like that's just how we.
Oh my God, I gotta say something. Oh my God, and please continue on after that. That was a topic of conversation.
Nowhere.
That's just the way we talk. That's just the way we do. That's just the way we are. That's that you hang around this group and crowd, and that's the way, we don't do that. We talk to each other this way because we've accepted this taught behavior. I'm sorry, Classy, go ahead.
Okay. But then it's like the other thing to look at on college campuses too is that some things, a lot of things, like how I spoke for the woman who might come from a more well-rounded background, some of those things, just on the same note, just as she could, there are a lot of those who do have high expectations of how they should be treated and try to keep themselves away from those situations. There are also some of them that feel that they need some type of validation by being in those types of relationships or by being treated that way. And it's kind of what my bro was talking about earlier, getting into that. Well, this is that Greek person, this is that male in that fraternity, or this is the one that's on the basketball team. I've seen it too many times. They're like, this is that one, and so this is what's gonna give me my status. So when I get to doing my networking, oh, he knows this and that, so I'm gonna just stick around, I'm gonna go through this, and then it's just gonna be okay. And I've seen that go into lead to more mental health issues, lead to more insecurities. And ultimately, it's like some people have been kicked out of school behind these relationships of being in these situations that they just were never supposed to be in the first place. And so that's why I do understand what y'all are saying, but people in my age group really don't understand the responsibility and risk that comes getting emotionally attached to someone, but not just that, you have to be mentally to handle those types of issues. Because red flags, when we say red flags, it's not just, it's trauma, that it's other people's trauma that you're dealing with. And so when you don't know what it is for yourself, like I got my one red flag and then she got hers too. All it's gonna do is collide if we don't know, or if we're not seeking the right type.
Codependency. Two abused people in an abusive relationship, codependency. And then you have a child, and the child is brought up in that abusive relationship. Again, going back to not understanding that it is an abusive relationship. And again, the excuse being made, that's just how we do. That's just how we are here. You don't understand. You come from a different background. Whereas I agree with that. I'll praise him every time I get a chance, and people can say and be angry if they want. But my father, when you talk about role models for studs and you talk about role models for young men, my father, I hear today about, etiquette. We don't do that. We don't open doors. Yes, you don't in that arena. You don't do certain things in that arena, but those things are still being done in other places. All of that to say, you did not mistreat Lorna Franklin. You just did not. And that transcended into his girls, me being the oldest. And, baby, if they don't treat you the way daddy does, if they don't treat you and respect you the way your dad has raised you to be, and the confidence and the self-esteem that I've raised you to have, they don't deserve to be in your life. It's a toxic thing. But if somebody's not telling you that, then you don't recognize that. And then not only did he say it, the example was in front of me. So I agree with you, Classic. And there's some great single family homes too. I've raised a child for a few years as a single parent, and I've seen, phenomenal single, mothers and fathers as well. But that does take a toll too, depending on the economic background and the challenges in life and how they grew up. But, I had someone instill into me that this is not okay to be treated this way. You know what I mean?
So I'm gonna give y'all a scenario. This is what I've heard. I'm a woman too. She hits me, I'm gonna hit her back.
I hear it all the time.
Do y'all agree with that?
No, I do not.
Are we supposed to have a higher standard because we're studs? I'm a woman too. So is my standard higher than hers?
I don't like that saying at all. You are the more dominant one in the relationship. I have a lot of homeboys that hit their women, and there were plenty of times when I have stepped in and was like, nah, you're not gonna do that in front of me, because I'm not gonna condone to that. Like, I just feel like that you're more you're more fit, you can take more than what she can take. So if you're trying to lead that relationship,
so some of these women,
then
some of these films hit very hard. Let's just not play
true.
around. They will
Yes,
knock you
true.
out.
And
The cutest
true.
ones, the daintiest ones will knock you out.
True.
I'm not trying to say, I do
that's
agree
true.
with you,
That's true.
And that
they
is
will,
true. But
they will make you want to, be like, hold on now, you know what I'm saying? But I just feel like, no, that I do not condone to that. Like, no.
And
absolutely
I agree with Genuine too. And you have a point too. It would be like, if somebody in a relationship said, hey, Elite hit me, you still standing? You're still on both feet? Really?
She didn't.
I bench over 300. There's no way that you would still be standing. So to be able to say that I hit you, no. So I am extra on top of making sure that I don't put hands on. You know what I mean? Because I do know I can move some things.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it makes it even worse because those of us who don't, I don't know my strength. So
exactly,
I am that Taurus that I have a bad temper, but I've also had to learn myself. Do you think that is a lot of what needs to happen? That a lot of, whether it's a stud or film, a lot of times we lash out with the domestic violence scenarios or put ourselves in those situations because we don't know ourselves? Do you think?
See, I have an issue.
Well,
I have an issue with rhetorically speaking, we know the mental and everything behind domestic violence, but I have an issue with why you feel you need to put hands on another person, grown adult anyway, and then for me, the day that you do that is the day that we need to, and I should have done it mental too.
Yeah, you might as just leave the relationship.
Yeah.
But here's what you're gonna get. I put my hands on because she made me mad. We've all heard that one, right?
Exactly.
And then she will say, this goes for heterosexual or the same sex, and she will say, but the sex is good, and it's not bad all the time.
But that's where maturity comes in. Like, I mean, absolutely. Just because somebody makes you mad doesn't mean you put your hands on them. Sit down, talk about it, or give each other space if y'all need to cool off. I mean, putting your hands on another individual is not what's up.
And people cannot make you angry. That is a choice to be angry.
Right.
You choose your emotions.
We all know that there are, as we've indicated tonight, that there are steps that you will see. There's little flags and you deal with it, conversating about it. But in this particular organization, we have also experienced the ultimate, and that is death. And this individual did not even, she was law enforcement. She knew all the signs.
Yep.
She trusted herself to be like, it's not that the flags weren't all there. They had been there. She ended the relationship. She walked away thinking, okay, I'm gonna move on. I'm loving somebody else. I'm loving me. They're loving me. And so I can be your friend. And being a friend to this individual cost her life. So what I feel that is a response, and you tell me if you feel like this is true. Us as masculine identifiers, when looking at this, how we can be better, do you feel that's our like all four of us don't have those issues, right? We're not abusive people. So when we see the studs that are in that, is it our responsibility to step in and say something? Is it our responsibility to stand up for those ladies? Is it our responsibility to help that stud get some help?
Somebody has to.
That ain't our business.
No, somebody has to. The old day, from what matriarchs used to say and the way it used to be, it takes a village. It takes a village to raise children. It takes a village, for your relationships. And somebody has to, because that's the problem today. And I think it's where we are with our technology and internet, that we are so detached from other people. When I was younger, you knew your neighbor. And where I live now, it's a blessing because we do know each other. And, I'll get a phone call. Hey, D, while you at work, I went across the street and I said, what are you doing at my sister's house? They don't know that's not my sister. And I live in and other neighbors, they, dogs will walk to things like that. But we have gotten so far away from that. Oh, that's not my business. And I think especially in certain races of people, it's not for me to say, but somebody has to say something. There was a special one that was located in Dallas that this young lady had been abused from the time she was 12 years old, and the neighbor knew. And they never stepped in, never did anything. Actually, she was 11, and finally, by the time she was 20 years old, somebody stepped in. But all of that time, this child had no way to reach out and get out, and no one to reach out to, because everybody would just pass by the house or pass by the situation. Nobody stood up and said anything. So some people may say, no, it's not our business, but as a human being and as a human race, somebody has to. That person may not have any other way to get out.
Because we're doing this, as our podcast, or shooting the shit, one of the things I want us to all know, here's the sign. If you see this is someone crying out for help. And that is why they're having a conversation with you. They do this. That means they need your help. Also, if you see someone in a situation and you just go, hey, are you hungry? I can order you a pizza. When you call 911 and you say, I'd like to order a pizza, that's indicating to the police that this is domestic violence situation that they're going to be walking into, which also lets the dispatcher know to tell them, if I'm correct, and help me out, Elite, do not have sirens, do not go in with force.
Not at all.
Just let them know. And then if they say, would you like pepperoni? That's letting the young person on the end that's calling for the help say, yes, I would like to have pepperoni, because pepperoni indicates, again, help me out, that they need a medical attention. So do think these are our now, and this is my challenge to those that are going to be watching us and for us, that if you see those signs, it is on us to really step in. And I'm not saying we do not want to be statistics, okay? We do not want to cause anyone their life either. So but we do want to help. One more thing, and this is another thing that was told to me from Partnership of Domestic Violence when they were on Molding with the Clays on that podcast a couple of weeks ago. That representative said that getting a restraining order is always the right thing to do. Majorly, go get you a restraining order. But also, it causes leaving the situation causes you to be in more of a risk.
Can I expand on that?
Yes, that's what I want you to talk. I want you to talk to us a little bit about that. Not being in the situation on a daily basis, that's already bad. But when you're trying to leave, that is why that statement, when people say stuff like, well, why she didn't leave? What Elite about to talk to us about is why she didn't leave.
It is. So hard. That's one of the things that abuses you. Let me address the restraining order first. Here in Texas, a restraining order is a civil paper. It's not an arrestable offense, so arrestable issue. So if you do a restraining order, yes, I can go and talk to that individual, but I have no arrest powers. A protective order, I have arrest powers. In the state of Texas, I can only answer for the state of Texas. Okay. But you still, as much paper as you want to put in their life, I agree with, because it does give me something to be able to go and speak on. I just can't make them leave and put bracelets on, as we call it. Protective order, right, that's the restraining order. Protective order, I'm not going to even talk to you. It's clink, clink, let's go.
Okay.
Because that's a arrestable form in Texas.
In Texas, okay. We want to make sure that is very clear in Texas. So that means that anyone who's watching this, understand you need to know what's going on in your state, because they're giving you a viewpoint of Texas. And I think, if I'm correct, viewpoint of Georgia is a restraining order. Yes, you can be arrested, but my suggestion, go get both. Go get a protective order, go get a restraining order. just to make sure you're covering your bases in your state, but know what your state is. But go ahead and continue.
I agree with that. And yes, that is the thing that abusers say too. Nobody else wants you but me. They don't want your, and then of course the array of derogatory verbiage that'll follow behind it. You leave, I will find you. You leave, I will kill you. You leave, I will do this to your children. You leave, and I'm going to tell you something. Abusers mean it. They will
say it for the people in the back. Say it for the people in the back.
Many of the abusers that say that mean it.
Now here's the thing. Let me give you this.
Say it just to instill that fear.
But sometimes they give you the other thing. It is, what am I going to do without you? You're the only one that understands me.
Let me go further. I'll kill myself if you leave.
Okay, so let's stop there. Do you believe that individual? Or do we take the risk of saying, my life is more important than yours at this particular moment, my mental health and my sanity, I have to walk away. And if you kill yourself, I'm just going to have to work through that.
Get out. Because you don't want to be in a relationship with someone who would tell you that anyway. Okay.
So if they that love you to death, do not love us to death.
Right. That is a person who at that point you need to make sure that there's some type of help for them, because I don't want to be in a relationship and that's that's toxic. That's not a healthy relationship for someone to tell you, if you leave, I'll kill myself. If you leave, I'm going to cut myself. I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to do this variety of things to myself. That's a codependency. That's definitely not a relationship that you want to remain in. That's also a form of abuse. But yes, abusers will tell you, if you leave, I'll find you. And oftentimes they do. I know of cases where people have moved, the women have moved to different places, and they have found them sitting out in front of their houses, following them to work, following the kids to school, going to a family member's home, calling family members,
Genuine, again, you deal with kids. Do you have, you don't have to, put details on it, because I know that would not be good, but when you've had children that have come from an abusive family, the mother or father, whomever the person is that's leaving, have you heard of them giving their kids safety words, or giving you safety or keywords, safety words that so that giving you stuff that says this person cannot pick them up? Do you have those kind of situations, or have you had those kind of situations?
Well, we don't do safety words anymore, due to phones being tapped. Anybody can figure out a safety word. So we don't do safety words anymore. The safety that we do take with the children is basically IDing each parent, making sure that they're on the pickup list, stuff like that. Now, if they are being abused, like if my teachers feel like a child is being abused, like they have, the hotline that they can, call, for themselves. However, they normally just say, hey, they call me so I can observe as well, so they can have a witness as, on their side, and to ask questions, because I'm more trained in that area, to see if I have any concerns. Now, if it's physical abuse, yes, like I immediately call that hotline and I call CPS. I have a whole bunch of things that I have to do to, save my butt as far as the child care. So just so, showing proof that it did not happen here. This is how they came in. Like as the children come in, we do a head to toe check, just to make sure that, hey, this happened when your child walked through the door, so yeah, I've seen a lot, and
so you've had mothers come to you and be like, look, I'm dropping my kid off, but and they got black eyes, or they're trying to cover it. Do you address that? Like, do you need help? Or when you see those kind of things, are you go here's a number, call when you get a break, or do you just kind of let them kind of float, see what they come to you with? Do you try to?
Well, the situations that I've been faced with, if I know their situation, of course, I'll, say, hey, do you need anything? Is there anything I can do to help? I do reach out to them, and check on them and stuff like that. But majority of all my parents, they're very like close to me. So I know if something's going on, in the household. Now the, new parents, you just never know. So I always say, hey, little Tommy, just throwing out a name, little Tommy had has a black eye. What's going on? And they'll
Tommy
say,
told
oh,
us
well,
about what happened last night, that the police was at his house,
right, right. You know what I'm saying? So
like you said,
I
little
always,
kids will tell. They will tell
yes,
on their parents.
yes. And so if mom says, oh, he, him and his sister got in a fight, I, normally go an extra step and pull little Tommy in the office and say, hey, what happened to your eye? Stuff like that. And they'll most likely elaborate on, what happened.
Okay. What's really challenging is, if there's signs by law here, here in Texas, you're required to call CPS if there's certain things that you see, even as a coach, that I coach you.
Yes.
And if there are signs and courses that we have to go through that you're required to make contact with CPS. But there's nothing set in for domestic violence. Yes, you may call us, and we'll go and see. But if it's not something that's occurring at that time or recently, there's really not a whole lot I can do. I can't go back in time and investigate, what may have happened a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, or 6 months ago. Whereas with Child Protective Services, they have the right to go into the home and make several visits and an open investigation. And I guess it's a question that I have: what do we do? What do we do? And I've thought that as a law enforcement, official for many, many years, because there is no agency. Yeah, there's adult protective services for the elderly. There's adult protective services, for the disabled. But domestic violence, there isn't an agency that you can call that'll go and do an open investigation the way they do these other entities that we're speaking about. Women at risk.
That's true. I think that, I will say this, and I will get more information about the Shy Foundation. Is run by Denise Jackson here in Atlanta. And it is due to the fact that her daughter was murdered in the driveway by the daughter's boyfriend because she was moving on with her life and they had a son together. He wasn't listening and he did what he did. And so Denise created her daughter, a foundation in her daughter's name. I tell you this, I know for a fact they travel. It will come if you call them at 3:00 in the morning and you're in Tennessee. It will come and get you to help you leave. Then I know there's that, what I guess we call the Underground Railroad.
I did that I'm familiar with. I did with a family member. I won't say who. Yes, that's removal. When they're trying to get out without that abuser knowing, because again, if that abuser knows they're leaving, the danger. But just if they're not able to move, if they're too afraid to move, there's no entity like Child Protective Services will come in, and if somebody said, okay, this child's being abused, there's no food, or there was what have you, they're going to interview people. They can go back and investigate. Whereas for us, if I get that call and that domestic violence is not going on, even if I see bruises, if they're old, I have nothing that I can go on. I may be able to open that investigation, but I can tell you,
it won't go anywhere because. And see, here's the other thing. Let's dip on this with same sex, because number wise, let's look at some statistics real quick. They're very little. We do not call it in. Number one, if I beat my girlfriend or my girlfriend's beating my ass, or I cussed her out, or we have a verbal, or we're having a mental, she's being mentally abused, or I'm being mentally abused, we don't call nobody. We do not call about those things.
I gotta say something. Law enforcement already has an attitude, maybe not everybody, of when they get there and it's a same sex domestic violence. There's this aura of, oh, okay, well, yeah, you know, like it's not a serious thing the way it is in a heterosexual, or it's a joke.
Yes.
You know, especially if it's two women. You know,
We
you get all
don't
these,
report it.
maybe they didn't get this, or they didn't do that, or they need a man, or they, you know, even with law enforcement. So a lot of times, you know, what I've experienced with saying, so that's why they don't call. You know,
that's true. And then there's also the fact of, for example, and I'm gonna put this on we mentioned ego. Earlier we mentioned about ego, and with studs, we have egos, and if our partner, and let me also take it this way, because what we have been doing, and this is my fault, is we've been saying stud in a film. We all know that there are studs that also are in relationships. It can be just as toxic as the stud and film relationship, and film and film relationships can be toxic as well. So I'm not excluding. Please know when I'm making these comments, when I'm saying these things, I'm not excluding those groups. I'm including them, but you know, it's a lot to say every single sentence. What we are looking at is that we will put our ego. And our ego is, I can't let nobody know she whipped up on me. I can't let nobody know she talked to me that way. Because yeah, when we get in the club and she walk up on me, who is that? You know, I might be a little embarrassed, but I can kind of laugh it off. Ha ha, oh, girl, that ain't nobody, and move on. Then we get in the car, you know, I'm all kinds of dogs and I'm everything but a child of God. And that is abuse on, and some of those studs, and I will say this, some studs will take that, you know, they will not, you know, they'll just be like, oh, whatever, that's just words. It's no big deal. It didn't do nothing. It does. It chips just a little bit. I mean, not a lot, but a little bit off of who you are. We have that ego not to talk to another stud about it, number one. And then two, we're definitely not going to go to counseling about it. And then we won't tell the police if we're walking around with a black eye, because it can get to that level, that little funny thing that I laughed about in the club about her, you know, who you talking to, who that bitch is. And then I laugh it off. That could have fueled some more fire. So we got in the car, she got more to say, and she's still talking, and I'm trying to drive and get us home. She driving, and I'm in the passenger seat, and then I'll kill us all. You know, there's all those different layers. And I think that the reason why we don't say that is a lot because of our egos. And we have to try to get past that. That is the big thing. So I think that these kind of conversations, and you guys talking about what you guys have encountered, not just being a physical type of situation, but just the mental, we don't like to talk about that. And for us as studs to say, look, you're not alone. If you're watching this and the four of us are talking to you and you hear something that ringed in your ear and you said, yeah, that, and you look over and you know that that's your boo, your sweetheart, your wife, your hun, and you know that's what she's doing to you, you have to be in a position to understand you have help, that there are others that have walked that journey, will walk with you as well. But we do have to let go of the ego. And I think that is why we don't tell. So there are very few numbers. And I was told with Atlanta that if the Black lesbian population were to report the domestic violence to the police, we'd be very high on the totem. That is disturbing. And what they're saying is it's not so much the numbers in low income. It's the people that make 75 a year, they got money, that are more abusive than those that are in the lower income. Now that's Atlanta. So I don't know if that's across the board though.
Well, you know, the question that enters my mind, and I don't what everybody else thinks. It seems to be more domestic violence in same-sex marriage or relationships, and I can only speak on female, than in heterosex. I don't get it. I don't. You know, for me, and it may not be for everybody else, that you very rarely see relationships in same sex that don't have those issues.
And I think that's what our early ability saying, like, oh, I'm a woman too. So at the end of the day, whatever you do to me, I can do to you, type thing. Or just not knowing how to. One thing that I will say is true, that I think society tries to use against us, is that as women, we do have a lot of emotions, right? That's not an excuse for anybody to do anything to anybody, but we do tend to get a little bit more, we are more confrontational in those situations. It's just about knowing how to handle that and knowing how to get through that. You need to learn how to express yourself. I think that's practice we're not used to yet, and it might be a cultural barrier that needs to be talked about a little bit more.
More conversations like this are apparently necessary. So that, and there are some more that are happening this week. We have one tomorrow that is the transgender and domestic violence, which there are very few, if any, numbers to go with that, right? So it's hard to, it's hard to even understand that community and what they're going through. So that's a discussion that will happen tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, we're looking at overall LGBTQ plus and domestic violence. And we do have a representative from Partnership Against Domestic Violence to give us some more resources. So this particular show, I will put the resources in as well into this. And before we close out, what can you all give me one thing that you feel we either prevent? What do we need to be doing in terms of when you first flags, how you feel about maybe someone going into a relationship, or you can view it from a person, what is a person who's abusive, who's been in abusive, who is the abuser in the relationship, what do they need to do? What advice do you have, whatever aspect you want to take when it comes to domestic violence? Classic, start us off.
I think for the abuser, just check your behavior, and not just check your behavior, but check your self-awareness. Is something in you that you're not dealing with that causes you to want to project that onto another person. And know that there's no flaw that you can't get past, that you can't work through. Just seek help and just make sure you're not causing more harm to anyone else.
All right. Genuine?
I would just say, like, just be aware, stay aware, and also just do not ignore red flags. Always be attentive to your feelings and how that other person makes you feel.
Lee, yeah.
I think a lot of the domestic violence, other than what we've spoken on in reference to an abuser becoming an abuser, but the abused becoming the abuser. It seems that in the LGBT community, we're so afraid of the person that we have found, that we think we found, we don't want to let go of, regardless of the situation. And, we're going to make this work no matter what, and we don't have to do that. You know what I mean? We don't have to do that. And if we're the abuser, same thing that everybody else on the line has said, seek the help. But a lot of times abusers don't even realize that they are abusers, and the more that people tell them they are, the more angry they become. So it does end up being a self-check, and seeking the professional help that's needed. We have a tendency to get in a group, and, you have another one for you, man, I wouldn't put up with that either. I wouldn't let her do that either. And that's not the correct help that you need.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, I think we need to understand that whether you are no label, whether you are not, it's not about being dominant. You have a masculine tone in your definition. I feel like we have a responsibility to protect. And I feel like it's and to appreciate that woman that wants to be with you, appreciate that she wants you in her life and treasure that. And if you need help to love that woman, go get the help. And if you see yourself going down that path, like you get those anger moments, that's human nature. We all can agree on that, but it's how we deal with it. And if I love you, I'm not gonna put my hands on you. It's not love, and that's what we have to say. Healthy relationships are very important. Buzz, I appreciate you all. We are going to be doing this more often. This is one of our podcasts that we are doing with Atlanta Black Pride and during domestic violence awareness month. But shooting the shit, we coming back, and I've got some topics. that are going to be like gonna blow your socks off. It is about relationships. We're gonna be talking about different angles of it, different versions of it, what it takes, what should you bring to the table, what it means to be a side, if you're gonna cheat, what the consequences of that is, how not to do that, why not to do it. We're gonna touch every subject. Shooting the shit is just that. It is studs like us. We're gonna come together. We might add some new people to it. These four of us right here, we are shooting the shit. We're all bros. We have each other's backs, and we're gonna show you public what brotherhood is, whether you're in a fraternity or not, because as studs, we do need to have each other's back. I appreciate each and every one of you guys getting on today. And I want you all to have a great evening, and we will talk later in the week. Love you guys.
Love you too.